In 16th century feudal Japan, a child destined for war was born in 1530. Nagao Kagetora, who would later become Kenshin Uesugi, grew up amid the brutality of the Sengoku era, a time when clans fought incessantly for control of Japan. From an early age, his military talent stood out, shaping him into one of the greatest strategists in history. Raised in the Nagao clan, Kagetora was forced to mature quickly. His father died when he was still young, and power struggles within the clan threatened his survival. However, his intelligence and skill with the sword made him a formidable candidate for leadership. At the age of 14, Kagetora was sent to a Buddhist monastery, where he honed not only his strategic mind, but also his self-control. His devotion to war as a sacred path set him apart from the other feudal lords. But fate called him to the battlefield. In 1548, Kagetora took control of the Nagao clan, eliminating his rivals and consolidating his rule over Echigo. He would soon assume the name by which he would go down in history, Kenshin Uesugi. Now leader of Echigo, Kenshin not only administered his land with justice, but also prepared to face formidable enemies. His main rival, Takeda Shingen, the Tiger of Kai, whose legendary rivalry would shape the history of feudal Japan. Kenshin stood out for his speed and tactical discipline. Unlike many at the time, he saw war as a divine duty, inspired by the god of war, Bishamon. His troops saw him almost as a living deity. The balance of power in Sengoku remained fragile. Kenshin expanded his influence, defeating local lords and strengthening their defenses. But the greatest challenge was yet to come, the First Battle of Kawanakajima against Takeda Shingen. In 1553, Kenshin and Shingen met for the first time in combat. The field of Kawanakajima would become the scene of one of feudal Japan's most iconic rivalries, with both leaders displaying strategic genius. Although this first battle ended without a definitive winner, Kenshin impressed his enemies with his skill in combat. He fought on the front line, something rare among daimyo, increasing the loyalty of his men. The clashes between Uesugi and Takeda would be repeated in the following years. But Kawanakajima wasn't just a war of swords, it was a battle of minds. Kenshin had to anticipate his rival's moves or risk losing everything. The Battle of Kawanakajima intensified over the following years, with increasingly brutal confrontations between Kenshin and Takeda. In 1561, the most legendary clash took place, where Kenshin personally attacked Shingen in single combat. During the battle, Kenshin managed to break through Shingen's defenses and, in an iconic moment, struck his rival with his katana. Shingen, with no time to draw his sword, blocked the attack with his iron fan. Despite the momentary advantage, Kenshin was unable to eliminate his enemy. Shingen retreated and reorganized his troops, making the battle even bloodier. The fields of Kawanakajima were dyed red with the blood of the warriors. Although Kenshin had shown great skill, the battle ended without a definitive winner. He decided to retreat to Echigo, maintaining his position but unable to destroy Shingen's hold on Kai. After Kawanakajima, Kenshin further consolidated his power. He strengthened his territories, improved his cavalry, and established strategic alliances to maintain his influence over the region. Although he rivaled Shingen, Kenshin was also seen as a fair and respected leader. He offered aid to neighboring lands in times of famine and promoted trade, increasing Echigo's wealth. Takeda Shingen's death in 1573 changed the balance of power in Japan. Kenshin now had to face an even more dangerous enemy. Oda Nobunaga, the warlord who aspired to unify Japan under his rule. In 1577, Kenshin marched against Nobunaga, facing his troops in the Battle of Tedorigawa. With his brilliant strategy, he won an overwhelming victory, proving that his tactical genius was still feared. After his victory against Nobunaga at Tedorigawa, Kenshin reinforced his defenses, anticipating an inevitable counterattack. He knew that Nobunaga would not accept defeat easily, and that new battles were about to take place. Nobunaga began to prepare his revenge, sending emissaries to weaken Kenshin's alliances. But the Lord of Echigo was not intimidated. On the contrary, he began planning his next major attack on Oda's forces. With Nobunaga's threat intensifying, Kenshin began preparations for a massive offensive. He gathered a large army and strengthened his alliances, determined to put an end to the growing influence of the Oda clan once and for all. In 1578, Kenshin was preparing to launch an attack on Nobunaga's forces. His plan was to cut off the supply routes and isolate the enemy troops, forcing them to fight in unfavorable conditions. However, before his campaign could begin, Kenshin was found seriously ill in his castle. Some reports say he suffered a stroke, while others suggest he was poisoned by Nobunaga's spies. The news of his death shocked Japan. Without their leader, the Uesugi clan was plunged into an internal civil war between his successors, allowing Nobunaga to further consolidate his power. Even after his death, Kenshin was remembered as one of feudal Japan's greatest warlords. His honor and code of conduct made him an example of leadership for future generations. Unlike many daimyo of his time, Kenshin was known for his justice and his devotion to war as a sacred duty, often being compared to Bishamonten, the Buddhist god of war. Kenshin's story has also influenced Japanese popular culture, appearing in books, films, and games. His rivalry with Takeda Shingen is considered one of the most iconic in samurai history. Although he didn't live to see Nobunaga's downfall, his legacy continued to inspire military leaders and strategists. His name is forever engraved in Japanese history.